Hi there, welcome back to part 4. In this session we are going to be looking to start building in the sculpting the face to kind of bring in more depth and form. We're going to be looking also focusing in on the eyes, the nose and the mouth, which are the anchor points, which we talked about earlier. Talking a little bit about it. Hopefully we'll get some time to talking about some of the creating realistic or an impression of hair textures in the clothing, and also just paying attention to subtle variations in color and tone and emphasizing the portraits or the subject's unique features. One quick tip I want to show you before we move forward. Something I like to do, especially if I'm doing a portrait in a single sitting, it's sometimes hard to see your portrait with fresh eyes. Normally I work on a tilted easel, but I'm working on a flat surface today so that I can film this, and there's some benefits in creating these beautiful texture effects. So and some of that is formed because the paper, the surface of the paper is flat and the paper isn't up and water isn't dripping. So there's no right or wrong in that, but a couple of little points I want to point out. You can see how beautifully loose this dress is. And one thing I love about it are these beautiful watermarks that happen in there. That happens if you're new to watercolor, is if you're working wet on wet and the paint isn't quite dry yet, and the water, the pigment that you put on has more water than what is on a paper, and so it creates this bleeding effect. Some more traditional watercolorists want to avoid that. I love that because it brings that sense of quality that this is a watercolor, and that's something I love to embrace. You can also see how you have these watermarks here from when I blended out the edge of her hair there, and it's just created these really pretty watermarks that I'm hoping to try and preserve. And those are really great textures, and I think that's all I want to point out for this. You can also see as well, like when you're working wet on wet after your initial layering, you do see how there's a lot of already you can see there's a lot of harmony in the painting. You've got the greens from that environment around her reflecting back onto her face, a little bit of the blues in the denim in there as well. You've got the greens of the grasses kind of going through, and so yeah, that's this all plays together in creating harmony in the photo painting, lots of flow. Like I said, when you're doing a painting in maybe one sitting or one day or however long it takes, sometimes you can get a little bit fatigued at seeing your painting and trying to see it with fresh eyes. One thing I love to do is I love to take a photo of it, and I like to walk away and look at the photo of my painting just to kind of evaluate it. Helps me get some fresh eyes. So here is a photo I took earlier, or a scan rather. And so having a look at this scan, sometimes I might keep it on my phone and have a look at it during the day, or change it to my wallpaper, or analyze it there. But the first thing that I can see is that I definitely need more value in this area here. And then I do need to really try and form her cheeks there. You can also, another thing I like to do is with my photos, I like to make it into black and white so I can better see my values. So if you're one of those people like me that can really struggle seeing values sometimes and the nuances of it, you can take that photo and make it black and white. And that way that kind of helps you see a little bit better. if you wanted to, you could compare the two. One way that you can do that is adjusting your iPad or if you use one as you need to. But immediately I can see when you compare it to the Rhodonite reference that the values here are a lot darker in her cheek, as I mentioned before, and across her forehead. I can see that I need to build just a little bit of more definition here. The sides here can go darker and deeper in value. And then you can also see just in the background here, if I need to make that pop light, there's some opportunity to bring that to value. This area here as well can go a lot darker, as you can see from the Rhodonite reference there, as well as just along her neck. So with that said, I will bring in this photo back in here and we can get started. So as you can already see, I have got myself a some fresh water. I'm going to put aside my size 12 here. That's a really big brush. I typically only ever use my larger size 12 brush for the initial wash for a painting this size. If I'm working on a 9x12, I may not even touch the size 12, and my size 10 might become my big brush, and I might then work this way with it for my first wash. But now that we're past that, but I can still see that I need to lay in some deeper values in her forehead there. I will get started on that. So what I can see is probably a bit of a touch of blue. I'm running a little bit low on that Serpentine Genuine, so I'm just going to load up here. And I'm also going to load up on my Quin Gold. Superfluous to say, it's sometimes really good to just make sure that, especially if you're in that first wash phase, to make sure you're already loaded up on pigment. You when you're in doing the first wash, you don't really want to have to stop and start, because timing is so crucial. You just want to make sure everything is where it needs to be. So do make sure that you have all the pigments you need. I'm gonna also maybe load up a little bit more on my Ultramarine Deep there. This is a pigment with Rockwell watercolor. They're really great paints, and actually if you wanted to, there is also a discount code that you can use, which is Lorraine01 on their website, and that will give you 10% off. So that always helps. Okay, here we go. So for this, I can see that it's maybe a little bit on the greeny side here, where I need to build up a little bit more value, and it kind of melds into a green with some kind of purples in there, and it's a little bit more pink and kind of a bluey purple in there. So I'm a little bit like how we did it in the first wash. I really want to try and do this kind of more of a these mid-value tones in one shape if I can. So let me just talk this with you so we can all plan this together. Right here I can see there's a little bit of green, there's a little bit of more value and depth just around her eye here and down here, which is a little bit more blue. If you're having a little trouble, you can always squint. There's also a little bit more definition and depth here, which is in a real kind of a slight purple kind of tinge there. I can probably connect that shape down through her kind of a nostril to just under her cheek, where it does bring a lot more value around about this area here. And then also kind of connect that shape over to this area here, where it's kind of a little bit more blue, and it kind of runs into kind of like an orangey kind of color down here, which is a little bit more green. Lots of definition here, and that would really help. And I probably at some point would probably need to get a little bit more definition around the area here, but that hopefully should be a good start. I'm gonna maybe get some of my puddles ready and get this serpentine going a little bit. You can see that I also will need a little bit of blue ultramarine, so I'm gonna get a slight puddle going here. There is that pinky purple, so I'm actually going to mix that in my palette. Let me see how that looks on paper. That's not too bad. That's pretty on point actually. Okay, so I think I have all of the colors I need. So what you could, some of you could maybe consider that this is like glaze or yeah, second wash. And let's go in here. Trying where possible to blend. This is the part where I try to have the softest edge as possible. Connect that to the blue that's kind of here. Bleed that out very gently, just trying to keep things nice and soft. That goes pretty deep green for me right there. Even comes out a little bit yellow, just under through there. Kind of melds into that pink. I'm going to try and preserve that highlight in her eye there if I can. I'm just getting a brush just to soften those edges. Yep. Try and be purposeful with my brush strokes here. And oh, this is when I double brush. This is just a clean, smaller brush that I'm using to blend the edges. Sometimes if I want as well, I would just get that brush and I will come in with a different color. Saves me from having to reach back in if I need to. I'm just going to pick up a little bit of green. So you can see, I'm really just mixing the colors on paper here. She has that kind of purple. I'll bring that green, just blend it right in. Oops. Sorry. Keep those edges nice and soft. Just identifying a couple of places where I see that purple. Down to the corner of her mouth there. I might just move down slightly to a smaller brush as I get a little bit more fiddly. See, there's a lot more. There's a slight touch of pink here, or orange, sorry. It kind of goes into a kind of gold, a green color, as it does around here as well. And nose. Trying to connect those shapes where possible. It turns into green right there. There is a slight highlight. I'm trying to lift out there. And then just on the chin is actually pretty dark. Along here as well. It's actually a little bit more golden. Just picking up some Quin gold and a little bit of burnt orange. I suppose I can get a little bit distracted when I'm doing things and I'm not always as purposeful as I can be, but when I'm trying to follow along these mid-value tones. It's pretty dark around there and it's a little bit more on the purple side. gonna chase under her cheek there, where I see lots of value. Kind of blends out a little bit. There we go. For me, just under her chin in this area here, it's kind of this weird, almost bluey green tones that I see in there. But watercolor always dries a little lighter than what you initially put on. I am trying my best to try and keep one shape, but I do, like I said, get very distracted and excited about other areas, and then forget what I'm doing. It's a little bit like how I work in my day job. It's going to soften some of those edges there that I created. Just want to still keep things pretty, soft. You know what? Come to think about it, there's actually more green in this side of her hair than I realize. Try just a little bit of that red orange. There we go. For those that are interested, many of you may already know that the right brain is more of the non-verbal part of your brain, and the left brain is the verbal part of your brain. And for many artists, it's very tricky to engage both sides of the brain when painting. There you go, you can start seeing just depth and dimension just slowly being built here. Some compare it to sculpting, which I'm inclined to agree on. Again, just really building up those mid values and learning to kind of see the subtleties in value. Sometimes it helps to squint your eyes a little bit in order to see those values. That's not an uncommon thing that you probably have heard. I normally let my paintings dry naturally, but what I might do for the sake of time is just show you. I may put a hairdryer to it just so that I can get onto the mixing a little bit quicker. See, now you can start seeing her face forming. Normally in any painting, or sorry, a picture, you notice that you're going to get the most vibrancy where in the bits where the highlights meet the between the highlights and the shade, just around out near the highlights, usually where you're going to get the most vibrancy of color. So do keep a lookout for that when you're painting next. Oh yeah, I did want to fix her arm too. I'm gonna need a bigger brush than that. Apply that. I don't know if that's gonna be a darker value, but I want to bring that one here as well. And you can see some pinks and blues right in here. Probably gonna have to go over that with another pass just to get that looking right. And then softening these edges again. Again, I'm not really doing any detail work yet. I'm just getting those big shapes in. Blending where I need to. I have to continue building in some depth in this area. It is looking a little bit more greeny just in her armpit there. There's also confusion in this area here. She's moving her hand, but just want to maybe just allude to maybe just like the pink in her fingertips. So kind of moving. I'm gonna make sure this pink speaks to this. Colors are together. Great. This valley needs to go darker, but I can't do that quite now. Okay, great. While I'm kind of waiting for this area to dry, what I can do is start again building in a little bit more depth and dimension into what's going on here. You can see this area is pretty dark and cool in color, so it's just gonna wake up my aquamarine there a little bit again. Aquamarine, Amazonite, I don't know why I keep calling it that. There is a bit of a serpentine highlight to it, so I think what I'll do is I think I might just go in deep with the serpentine. Let that bleed into there, that will help. Oh, went into her knee there, forgot that was there. There you go. I'll make those colors talk. Got a lot of pigment on my brush, so take it up in there. And while it's wet, let's see, I think this amethyst will help actually give it a real big sense of depth. One thing that's great with amethyst, if you ever work with it, is it's a really nice dark, really great for your darks, without it going black and becoming too dull. If you ever want to make sure there's harmony and flow through, if you are doing negative edge, and let's say you want to make sure that you don't just stop the line here, but you just have a little bit of flow through there, it just kind of gives it a sense of flow and continuation. I'm also going to just bring in that into the dress a bit more, so it adds a bit of confusion about what's really going on. I think I needed a little bit in there as well. And I'm also going to bring that up here. I just blend it out there. That kind of creates a nice shadow about any blacks. While I'm in there, I might just bring a little bit, start building in some of the darks are in this area. Definitely have to soften that out. I guess with oil painting, I don't really deal much with oils or the mediums, but I suppose you do always have to work in layers. Another thing about keeping your painting atmospheric and loose, just watch out for lines. Even though you can see there's a clear line for that dark of the collar there, I would always leave a couple of gaps. If you have too many continuous lines in a watercolor painting, or maybe other paintings as well, you can make the painting feel a little stiff, and I want her to look alive. So easy on the hard lines there. Just kind of dotting in some texture and detail. I always find doing clothing and garments the most fun, because you need to give like a slight impression of it. At least that's what I like to do. Fun, right? Just going back to soften some of those edges. Perfect. Okie dokie, how are we doing here? Oh, it's still wet. I'm just gonna wait a little longer and find another little place to get stuck into. Can build in on her dress there. Like I said, when you're doing details like this, you don't draw a hard line in on every line, and you can even try and work with the, you don't need to copy exactly what you see on the reference photo. You do have a little room and space for imagination, and so sometimes I like to work with that wash and work what I see, just to work with the pattern that's already there, so I can preserve just the beauty of that wash that we work so hard to get. Here I'm just kind of like adding in dots of shadows and trying to imitate the form that we see, these like ruffles, just painting in the ruffles that we see here. Try and keep things real soft. So look at her little arms, they just look a little bit on the pink side to me, and I do want to get that kind of golden glow that's on her, so just work to make sure that that is preserved up there. Perfect. Just having a little, okay. Just gonna dry her face a little bit so we can just get started there. My hairdryer, I'm using a diffuser. The reason is there's no puddles of water and it'll just diffuse the heat to dry it really quick. I wouldn't use a power nozzle, especially if you've got puddles of water now, you're just going to push paint around. Okay, now that we've done that, I'm gonna really want to focus on her eyes, nose, and mouth for now. And this might be where I use my smaller brush. And for this, I think I really love that ultramarine blue and burnt burnt scarlet mix. Creates a nice kind of, if I add a little bit more scarlet in there than I do ultramarine, it does create a nice warm brown or warm neutral. I'll grab this and have a test. Not bad, it's a little on the purple side, but I think that's good to go. I'm just gonna work on her eyes right here. Right now I am just looking and just want to start building in her pupils. Even though I have a sketch, I do want to try and really look at my reference to really get a good sense of what she looks like. I'm just getting this little small brush here and I'm just lifting out a small semicircle here just to kind of get a sense of roundness. It's a really small detail, but I think it really adds, it counts. Softening up there. You don't actually see much in a way of distinction between, it's so much in a shadow that you don't really see much at all. It does bleed out, so, and it almost goes, yeah, it does, just a little bit. Eyes always want to look like sisters and not necessarily like twins. Just calling away there, so trying to draw what I see here. Lifting out that semicircle just to kind of emphasize that roundness eyeball. There is a softness to those eyes, so I just want to take out that edge there, soften it. Also, there's just this really cute little, not eye wrinkles, they kind of, I don't know what you call those. They're cute though. I need to put those right under the eyes. I want to maybe just keep this a little bit warm, so I just added a little bit of burnt scarlet there. Actually, there is a lot of warmth around the eyes, so just bringing in that burnt scarlet around the edges there to help lead that out. Adding in brows. I'm gonna keep that soft. Don't draw every hair in your eyebrows. No one sees that anyway. Oh yeah, you can draw every hair. It's just not my style, so. Yeah, I don't know what you call those. They're not wrinkles. Little eye, just little eye creases. Is that what you would call them? There we go, just getting in the dip for his eye there. Just getting a little bit of a darker valley zone and just gently dotting in some pigment. To where that would be. Her nose, under her nose is actually very warm. Right here, so that is what I want to do when I'm bringing in her nostrils. So like I said earlier, these are the anchor points that we're working on. And right around and right around her nose. Cute little button nose. Actually, this brush is a little bit too small to do this with. Just gonna larger brush. As soon as I get all these like fiddly little lines, I know that I'm working with the wrong brush. I don't want thin little hairlines on a face where there are no lines. I have to draw her little smile in a little bit more. I think you can see as it progresses, it just, those anchor points really help anchor her likeness, right? Just taking out a lot of moisture from my brush, and I'm just going to slightly blend that out. I left quite a bit of a harsh line there, which I'm just going to soften from my previous wash. Nice about mineral paints, a lot of them lift really easy. However, having said that, I do need to get those anchor points in nice and accurate, so hopefully this will be dry enough to work. Darkest parts of the mouth are usually in the corners. Just looking at the angle of her smile there. I haven't, just probably gonna try and get those darks in, but I'm not gonna be able to get the whole crease in. Oh, that's a little bit wet, but that's okay. Just gonna just start building in that in there. Don't draw every teeth line, just getting in some of those little key points. I'm not gonna leave that like that, yikes. Needs to be a little bit darker around here. her little nostril. And there as well. Now I kind of want to bring in her chin. We'll keep building. Take out some water, blend that out. There you go. It's amazing. Amazing what a couple of layers does. I still need to build in a little bit of that definition and into the cheek line there. I think I do need to let this dry. And what I might do is I might begin to lift out some of the highlights, the masking tape that I left in there, just because I'm finding that it is starting to get in the way. With the colors that I have to get a nice red shade, I think I might be able to get there with some warming up this. There you go. So I can warm up the pink with a little bit of the burnt orange there, Quin burnt orange. That kind of creates a more of a little reddy tone. That's what I see at the top of her lips. Oh, a little bit wet. Kind of goes a little bit orange. That red is in there. In the sense of her mouth there. Teeth are in there somewhere. It is really pink. Getting that out. Lots of confusion in this area here, so eventually when it's a little dry, we'll need to soften up those edges. Just gonna lift out the color really gently, try to keep those edges really soft. It's really pink towards here, so almost a pinky purple. Your warm raspberry. Lips, you don't want hard lines. She's not wearing lipstick, so I will make sure that these are all nice and softened out. Soften up that top line as well. Very sweet. Yeah, until it's gonna give at least this part a quick dry. Put my hand here. Just trying to preserve the watermark that's forming here because it's really pretty. You can see those values are building up nicely, but what I do see is I do feel like I need to build in more depth here. You can see sometimes I just will use a notarized reference just to help me get there. I'm gonna take there more than, here we go, orangey blue. Bring that. Look at that serpentine, it's so green. I love it. It looks so much like a fresh summer's day to me. Building up where those values need to go. Building up values. Keeping that green. I'm trying that green together. Soften, soften. need to go back in there once this is dry to really mark out those anchor points. Maybe talk a little bit about lifting highlights. I think I'm reasonably happy with the faces. Probably need to just build up a little bit more here. And then I really want to build up those arms as well. I think I need that nice green and burnt scarlet for just under. That's a little bit of a mystery there, and that's okay. Leave it a mystery. Oops. I'll try and make that work. I think I need some green in there. There we go. So I'm looking at so far. What I do think this needs, I think I really want her head to pop a bit more. And so before I go into the details, I might just build in a bit more value from right behind her. When you're holding a brush, you don't always have to hold it like this. There's many ways in which you can adjust your grip on it in order to suit what you're doing the most. So do vary the way you hold your brush. It will affect the way it looks, how your brush strokes turn out like. Oh, okay. So now that I've built that up a little bit, just taking a much larger brush, and I'm just bleed this all out really quickly. It's actually drying a lot faster than I would have liked it to. And leave some of those hard lines. In case you get a hard line, it's not too late to try and put more pigment in there and